The wrench slipped from Noah Hale's grease-slicked fingers and clattered against the Durasteel floor, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the cavernous silence of the hangar. Noah did not curse. He simply closed his eyes and listened. To anyone else, the noise was just a drop tool. To Noah, it was a sharp, flat percussion note, interrupting the ambient symphony of the garage. He could hear the low, throaty hum of the magnetic stabilizers in the floor, a sound like a cello played underwater. He could hear the high-pitched whistle of the wind scouring the lunar surface outside a frantic violin section that never ceased. And beneath it all, the deep, rhythmic thrum of the gas giant above them, a bass line so profound it resonated in his marrow rather than his eardrums. He exhaled, wiping his hands on a rag that was more oil than cotton. The intake manifold on the Rusty Sparrow, a light freighter belonging to Old Man Miller, was singing out of tune. It was a subtle dissonance, a vibration in the fuel injection port that suggested a hairline fracture about 3 centimeters from the main seal. "You are off-key," Noah murmured to the ship, patting its cold hull. "But we will get you singing right by morning." Noah Hale was a man composed of sharp angles and tired eyes. At 35 years old, he had the weathered look of someone who had spent too much time squinting at instrument panels in bad lighting. He wore a flight suit that had been patched so many times, the original fabric was a matter of historical debate. He was a pilot, a mechanic, and, most exhaustingly, a father. "Dad, 7 times 8 is 56, right?" The voice cut through the mechanical melody. Noah looked down from the maintenance gantry. His daughter Mara was lying on her stomach on a hovering cargo pallet she had repurposed as a desk. Her legs kicked the air absent-mindedly. At 7 years old, she was a chaotic whirlwind of dark curls and missing teeth, the only thing in Noah's life that refused to follow a predictable orbit. 56, Noah agreed, sliding down the ladder. "But if you are calculating fuel consumption for a heavy lifter, you had better round up to 60 to account for drag. Always account for drag, Mara. The universe likes to pull you back." Mara rolled her eyes, a gesture she had perfected over the last 6 months. "It is just math class, Dad. We are not calculating drag. We are calculating apples." "Apples have drag if you throw them hard enough," Noah muttered, walking over to the small kitchenette in the corner of the hangar. The garage was their home. It was a converted military surplus bunker on the edge of the Illyri settlement, a dusty moon orbiting a massive azure gas giant. The living quarters were a loft suspended above the workshop, accessible by a spiral staircase. It was industrial cold and smelled perpetually of ozone and burnt coffee, but it was theirs. It was safe. It was isolated. Noah filled a kettle with water and set it on the induction plate. He looked out the reinforced viewport. Outside, the twilight was deepening into the bruised purple of an Illyri's night. The gas giant hung heavy in the sky, its swirling bands of blue and violent violet illuminated by the distant sun. Tonight was the star drift. The calendar on the wall, a digital slate with a cracked screen, had the date circled in red. Once every 2 standard years, the moon passed through the trailing dust tail of the gas giant's ring system. The friction of the dust hitting the thin atmosphere created a meteor shower that could last for 6 hours. It was spectacular. It was beautiful. It meant tourists. "Are we going to watch the roof open tonight?" Mara asked, abandoning her holographic tablet. She floated the pallet over to him, hovering at eye level. "The roof stays closed," Noah said, reaching for a mug. "The dust interferes with the sensors. Besides, I have to finish the intake on Miller's ship before dawn. He has a shipment of hydroponic roots to run to the orbital station." "But everyone is going to the ridge," Mara complained, her voice taking on that dangerous whine that preceded a meltdown. "Sasha said the sky is going to look like it is on fire, blue fire." "Sasha talks too much for a mechanic," Noah said. He poured hot water into the mug, but not for coffee. He reached into the refrigeration unit and pulled out a carton of synthetic milk. He mixed it with the water until it was warm, stirring it with a clean screwdriver, because he could not find a spoon. "You are doing the thing again," Mara said softly. Noah froze. He looked at the bowl of warm milk in his hands. It was a plain ceramic bowl, chipped at the rim. "It is just for the strays," Noah said, his voice tight. "You know how the feral rock cats get when the temperature drops." "I have never seen a rock cat, Dad. Not once." "That is because they are good at hiding. Like us." Noah walked to the side door of the garage, the small airlock that led to the back scrapyard. He cycled the inner door, placed the bowl on the concrete slab just outside, and cycled it shut before the atmosphere scrubbers could complain. Through the thick glass, he watched the steam rise from the white liquid, curling up to vanish into the thinning air. It was a lie, of course. There were no rock cats on Illyries. The atmosphere was breathable but thin. Nothing lived out here that did not come on a ship. He did it for Amaya. 5 years ago, before the accident, before the silence, Amaya used to leave food out on the porch of their old home, on the colony world. She said that the universe was a lonely place, and if you had warmth to spare, you had a duty to share it. She believed that if you left a light on something lost, might find its way home. Noah did not believe in things coming back. He knew that when things left, like his wife, like his happiness, they were gone. The void took them. But every night he put out the milk. It was a ritual of grief he could not abandon, a quiet plea to the cold, dark. "I am still here. We are still here." "Dad," Mara tugged on his sleeve. "Can we at least open the viewport shutters, please?" Noah looked down at her. She had Amaya's eyes, dark, inquisitive, and incapable of accepting "because I said so" as a valid answer. "Fine," Noah sighed. "Shutters only. But if I hear one piece of grit hit the glass, we lock down." Mara cheered and ran to the control panel. With a heavy clank, the blast shields over the main skylight retracted. The timing was perfect. Above them, the sky was beginning to burn. Streaks of luminescent azure tore across the blackness, silent explosions of light, as the dust particles incinerated in the upper atmosphere. It looked like the universe was weeping neon tears. The light bathed the garage in a spectral blue glow, making the half-disassembled ships look like the skeletons of great beasts. Noah leaned against the workbench, watching the show. He felt the familiar vibration in his skull, the hum of the cosmos. Tonight, the atmosphere was screaming. The friction of the dust created a high-frequency resonance that most people couldn't hear, but to Noah, it sounded like 1,000 flutes played by madmen. He rubbed his temples, trying to tune it out. He hated the noise. He hated that he could hear the structural stress in a landing strut before the sensors picked it up. He hated that he knew a storm was coming 2 hours before the meteorologists. Amaya used to call it a gift. She said he could hear the song of the stars. Noah called it a defect. It made the world too loud. It made him want to hide. "It is beautiful," Mara whispered, her face pressed against the glass of the skylight, standing on her tiptoes on the gantry. "It is just atmospheric friction," Noah said, though he did not look away. "Chemistry and physics." "It is magic," she corrected him. "Magic is just science we do not have the manual for yet." Suddenly, the melody changed. Noah straightened up his heart, hammering against his ribs. The high-pitched keening of the star drift was still there, but beneath it something new had entered the composition. A low, tearing sound. Unrhythmic, syncopated, and violent. It was the sound of an engine dying. "Mara, get down," Noah said, his voice low. "What? Get down now." He didn't wait for her to argue. He sprinted across the hangar floor, vaulted up the ladder, and grabbed her, pulling her away from the skylight and under the heavy durasteel frame of the workbench. "Dad, what is—" The sound was not an explosion. It was the sickening crunch of metal hitting lunar soil at 300 kilometers an hour. The ground lurched. Tools rattled off the walls. A cloud of dust blasted against the skylight, momentarily obscuring the blue fire of the meteor shower. Then came the screeching. The terrible sound of a hull dragging across the rocky surface of the backyard, chewing through the scrap metal Noah had piled there. It was getting closer. The noise grew louder, a deafening shriek of friction. Noah covered Mara's ears and curled his body around hers. He counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. The garage wall shuddered. The heavy, reinforced plating buckled inward, but held. The screeching stopped, abruptly replaced by the hissing of coolant lines rupturing and the ticking of cooling metal. Silence returned to the hangar, but it was a tense, fragile silence. "Stay here," Noah commanded. He stood up, grabbing a heavy wrench from the floor. It wasn't a blaster, but Noah didn't own a gun. A wrench had solved 90% of his problems in life. He hoped it would solve this one. "Dad, is it a meteor?" Mara whispered, her eyes wide. "Meteors do not have coolant leaks," Noah said. He moved toward the side airlock. The sensors were screaming warnings about impact tremors and proximity alerts. He ignored them. He cycled the door. The outer door slid open, and the smell hit him instantly. Burning hydraulic fluid, ozone, and something copper-sharp like blood. The backyard, usually a neat graveyard of spare parts, was a trench of destruction. A deep furrow had been plowed through the lunar soil, ending right against the foundation of his garage. Sitting there smoking and ruined was a ship. It was small, barely larger than a shuttle. The design was unfamiliar, sleek curves, no visible thrusters, dark matte plating that seemed to absorb the light of the stardrift. It looked organic, like a seed pod made of obsidian, and it had stopped exactly 3 inches from the bowl of milk. The milk was rippling from the vibration of the crash, but the bowl was unbroken. Noah tightened his grip on the wrench. "Identify yourself," he shouted, feeling ridiculous. He was shouting at a wreck. A hiss of pneumatics answered him. A seam appeared in the side of the dark ship, and a hatch fell open, hitting the dirt with a dull thud. Noah stepped back. He expected a pilot to stumble out, maybe a smuggler running from the authority patrols, or a rich tourist who had underestimated the gravity well. He did not expect the tale. A figure emerged from the smoke. She was tall, lithe, and moved with a fluidity that defied the injuries she must have sustained. She wore a tattered cloak that swirled in the wind, but beneath it, Noah saw armor made of articulated plates. Her skin was a pale violet covered in a fine velvety down. Her ears were high on her head, tufted and swiveling like radar dishes, and her eyes, gold slit-pupilled and glowing in the dark, locked onto him with predatory intensity. A felon. Noah's stomach dropped. He had seen Phelan spacers at the orbital stations, usually keeping to themselves, moving in tight packs. They were rare in this sector. They were rumored to be aggressive, xenophobic, and dangerous. This one held a jagged piece of metal as a weapon. "Stay back!" Phelan hissed. Her voice was raspy, layered with a growl that vibrated in Noah's chest. "Do not approach!" Behind her, a second figure stumbled out. This one was smaller, younger, and clearly hurt. She leaned heavily against the hatch frame, one hand clutching her side, where dark blood was soaking through her tunic. "Kayla, wait!" the second one gasped. Her voice was softer, melodic, even in pain. "He has milk. Look!" The first Phelan Kayla glanced down at the bowl of milk sitting miraculously untouched near the landing strut. Her ears flattened against her skull. "It is a trap," Kayla growled. "Humans do not give. They take." "No," the injured one, Saris whispered. She slid down the side of the hull, her legs giving out. She was dragging a heavy reinforced crate behind her. It looked like a cargo container, but it was vented, and strange sounds were coming from inside. Noah lowered the wrench slightly. "I am not trapping anyone," he said, keeping his voice level. "You crashed into my house. You are trespassing." "We are leaving," Kala snapped. She moved to help Saris, trying to haul the younger woman back up. "Get up, Saris." The hunters are close. We saw the signature on the descent. I cannot, Sarah said, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She looked at Noah, really looked at him with eyes the color of nebulas. The stabilizers are gone, Kayla. The reactor is leaking. You can fly it on emergency power, but not with my weight. Not with the cargo. I am not leaving you, Kayla snarled. You must. Saris pushed the crate toward Noah. The crate rattled. From inside came a sound that froze Noah's blood. It wasn't a mechanical noise. It was a high-pitched mewling. And then, a small tentative voice said, "Hungry." It was a clumsy, distorted word shaped by a mouth not designed for human speech, but it was undeniable. What is in the box? Noah asked, stepping forward despite himself. Stay back, Kayla lunged, swinging the metal shard. Dad, Mara ran out of the airlock, ignoring Noah's orders. She stopped beside him, staring at the aliens with zero fear and 100% curiosity. Mara, go inside, Noah barked. They are hurt, Mara said, pointing. Dad, she is bleeding. Saris looked at the human child. Her expression softened, a strange mixture of pain and hope crossing her feline features. She reached out and unlatched the crate. The lid popped open. Inside, huddled together in a tangle of limbs and oversized ears, were three creatures. They were small, covered in soft fur, ranging from slate gray to spotted amber. Their eyes were enormous. They looked like kittens if kittens had human-like hands, and the intelligence to look back at you with existential confusion. One of them, a bold little thing with stripes, hissed at Noah. Another, smaller and white, tried to hide under the third, a large, silent gray one. Kittens, Noah stared. You brought kittens. They are children, Saris corrected him, her voice failing. Of the Keth lineage, and they are being hunted. Hunted. Noah looked at the sky. The star drift was still falling, beautiful and indifferent. By who? By our own kind, Kayla said bitterly. She stood over Saris, her body a shield. Because we refused to teach them hate. Because we refused to execute the Order of Silence. Noah didn't know what the Order of Silence was, and he didn't want to know. He wanted them off his property. He wanted to go back to fixing the rusty sparrow and drinking warm milk and pretending the universe wasn't complicated. We cannot stay, Kayla said, looking frantically at the sky. If they find us here, they will burn this entire moon to get to them. I have to draw them away. Then go, Noah said. Take them and go. I cannot take them, Kayla said, her voice cracking. The life support is failing. At high G burns, they will die. Saris is too wounded to survive the G-force. I am the only one who can fly the decoy. Saris reached out and grabbed Noah's ankle. Her grip was surprisingly strong, her claws retracting just enough to not draw blood, but enough to bruise. Take them, Saris pleaded. No, Noah said immediately. Absolutely not. I am a mechanic. I am a single father. I am not a nursery for alien refugees. They will die if you do not, Saris said. Tears thick and silver welled in her eyes. They have done nothing but be born, please. Dad, Mara whispered. She had moved closer to the crate. The white kitten, the shy one, had reached a small, clawed hand out and was holding Mara's finger. Look, Noah looked. He saw the connection. He saw the absolute terrifying trust in his daughter's eyes. And he heard the song again. The crash had disrupted it, but now a new melody was forming. It was fragile, barely a whisper coming from the crate. A song of potential. A song of beginning. Why me? Noah asked, his voice rough. Why land here? The milk, Saris whispered, pointing to the bowl. We saw it on the thermal scans. A heat signature of offering in a cold world. We thought, we hoped, she coughed, her body convulsing. Kayla knelt beside her, checking a device on her wrist. They are entering the upper atmosphere, Kayla said, panic rising. 2 minutes. I have to go. Now. Leave them, Saris commanded her sister. Leave me. Fly the pattern. Lead them into the drift. Kayla looked at the kittens, then at Saris, and finally at Noah. The hostility in her eyes vanished, replaced by a desperate, searing intensity. She reached into her tunic and pulled out a necklace. It was a rough-cut crystal, pulsating with a faint rhythmic light that matched the beating of Noah's own heart. She shoved it into Noah's hand. "This is the blood key," Kayla said. "It identifies them as Keth. Do not lose it. Do not sell it. If you do, I will hunt you down myself." "I do not want your jewelry," Noah protested. "Saris," Kayla said, ignoring him. She touched her forehead to the younger woman's forehead. "May the stars guide you." "May the silence never take you," Saris replied. Kayla spun around and sprinted back to the ship. The hatch sealed with a hiss. The engines whined a horrible damaged sound that made Noah wince, and the black ship lurched into the air. It didn't fly gracefully. It tore itself away from gravity thrusters, flaring erratically as it shot straight up into the rain of blue fire. Noah watched it go. He watched the exhaust trail mix with the falling stars until it disappeared. He looked down. Saris was slumped against the wall of the garage. She was not dead, but she was fading fast. Her breathing was shallow, and the crate was still there. "You have to hide them," Saris whispered. She looked up at Noah, her golden eyes dimming. "Hide them from the sky." "I don't know how to take care of—" Noah gestured helplessly at the box. "I don't know what they eat. I don't know what they are." "They are the future," Saris said. She reached out and touched the cheek of the nearest kitten, the bold, striped one. Then she looked at Noah with a piercing clarity that unsettled him to his core. "Teach them," she said. "Teach them what?" Noah asked. "How to hide, how to run." Saris shook her head. A faint smile touched her lips. "Teach them to love humans," she said. "If they survive, if they learn this, the future of both our species will change." Her hand dropped. Her eyes drifted shut, though her chest still rose and fell in a weak, shallow rhythm. She had passed out from the pain. Noah stood there in the freezing lunar wind. He held a crystal in one hand and a wrench in the other. The star drift was reaching its peak, turning the night into a kaleidoscope of impossible light. "Dad," Mara said softly. Noah looked down. The kittens had climbed out of the crate. They were shivering. The bold one, Jax, Noah didn't know his name yet, but he looked like a Jax, sniffed the air. He waddled over to the ceramic bowl that had started this entire mess. He dipped his tongue into the milk. He made a face, shook his head, and then went back for more. The other two followed. Mara giggled. "They like it." Noah looked at the spilled milk pooling on the concrete. In the reflection of the white liquid, he could see the streaks of the meteors above. It looked like a galaxy swirling in a puddle. "This is a mistake," Noah said to the wind. "This is a massive, terrible mistake." "Can we keep them?" Mara asked, picking up the white kitten. "Please, they don't have a mom anymore." Noah looked at Saris unconscious against his wall. He looked at the sky where Kayla had vanished to draw off the hunters. He looked at his daughter, holding a child of the enemy, beaming with pure, unadulterated love. He heard the song of the universe. It had changed its key. It wasn't lonely anymore. It was chaotic, terrified, and incredibly loud. He sighed, the breath leaving him in a long, white plume. "Get the medical kit," Noah said, holstering his wrench, "and bring the rest of the milk. It is going to be a long night." He bent down and scooped up the unconscious Phelan woman in his arms. She was lighter than she looked, her bones hollow like a bird's. As he carried her into the garage, the three kittens abandoned the bowl and scrambled after him, mewling and tripping over their own tails, following the warmth. Outside, the stars continued to fall, burying the tracks of the crash in a layer of blue dust, hiding the secret that had just landed in Noah Hale's garage. The hunt had begun, but for tonight, the garage door hissed shut, sealing them in. The next morning the sun rose over Illyris with a blinding, indifferent brilliance. The star drift was over, leaving only a fine layer of azure grit, covering every surface of the settlement. Inside the garage, the air was thick with the smell of antiseptic and burnt toast. Noah sat on a stool by the workbench, staring at the scene before him. He had not slept. His eyes felt like they were filled with sand. Saris was lying on a cot in the corner of the workshop, covered in a thermal blanket. He had cleaned her wounds and applied a BioSeal patch to the worst of the lacerations on her side. She was stable, her breathing deep and rhythmic, a low purr emanating from her chest that seemed to vibrate the tools on the nearby table. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was currently hanging from the hydraulic lift of the Rusty Sparrow. "Get down," Noah said wearily. The striped kitten, the one with the attitude, stared down at him from the top of the landing gear. He hissed a tiny, inconsequential sound and swatted at a dangling wire. "That is a fuel line," Noah said. "If you puncture that, we all explode. Do you understand explode?" "He doesn't understand basic dad," Mara said. She was sitting on the floor, surrounded by a fortress of pillows she had dragged down from the loft. The other two kittens, the white female and the big gray male, were asleep on her lap. "You have to speak cat." "I am not speaking cat," Noah said. "I am a 35-year-old man with a mortgage on a garage and a reputation for sanity. I do not speak cat." "Meow," Mara suggested helpfully. Noah rubbed his face. "I need more coffee." He walked to the kitchenette, stepping carefully over a puddle of coolant he hadn't had time to mop up. His mind was racing. He had an unconscious alien fugitive in his shop. He had 3 juvenile aliens, treating his heavy machinery like a jungle gym. And he had a crystal necklace in his pocket that felt warm to the touch, pulsing like a second heartbeat. He should call the authority. That was the logical thing to do. There was a precinct on the orbital station. Marshal Vance would come down, take them into custody, and Noah could go back to his life. Teach them to love humans. The words echoed in his head. It was such a stupid request. How could you teach love? Love wasn't a lesson plan. It wasn't a schematic you could follow. Love was messy. It was painful. It was putting out milk for a ghost for 5 years because you couldn't bear to admit she was never coming back. He looked at Mara. She was stroking the ears of the gray kitten, humming a lullaby Amaya used to sing. The kitten was kneading her leg with its claws, its eyes closed in bliss. Noah felt a tightness in his chest. He realized with a sinking feeling that he wasn't going to call the authority. He wasn't going to call anyone. "Mara," Noah said. "Yeah. If anyone asks if Sasha asks or Old Man Miller," Noah paused, searching for a lie that wouldn't sound insane. "We found some rare breed of genetically modified pets. From a crash trader. We are fostering them." Mara looked up, her grin widening. "So we are keeping them." "We are hiding them," Noah corrected. "There is a difference." "What are their names?" "No names," Noah said firmly. "Rule number 1 of the garage: do not name things you might have to dismantle or give back." "This one is Jax," Mara said, pointing to the striped one on the landing gear. "Because he jumps like a jumping jack." "Mara," I said, "and the white one is Lumi, short for luminous, because she glows in the dark. Look, her eyes are glowing." "That is the tapetum lucidum layer reflecting the ambient light," Noah said automatically. "It is biological optics." "Lumi," Mara insisted. "And the big one is Ash, because he is gray like the engine ash." Noah stared at her. Jax, Lumi, Ash. The names settled into the air, heavy and permanent. "Fine," Noah muttered. "But do not get attached. As soon as their mother wakes up, we are figuring out a plan to get them out of here." A loud clang interrupted him. Jax had successfully detached a clamp from the landing gear and dropped it onto the metal floor. The kitten looked down at the noise, delighted, and let out a trill of victory. Noah closed his eyes. He heard the song again. The rhythm of his life, the safe, solitary, melancholic rhythm, was gone. In its place was a chaotic, high-tempo jazz improvisation that made his head hurt. But as he listened, really listened, he heard something else underneath the chaos. A new harmony. The purring of the mother, the giggling of his daughter, the triumphant squeak of the kitten on the wing. It wasn't a song he knew. It wasn't a song he wanted. But for the first time in 5 years, the garage didn't sound empty. Noah picked up his coffee. He looked at the bowl of milk by the door, now empty, and licked clean. 100% drag, he whispered to himself. I am never going to get any work done ever again. He took a sip of the bitter coffee, grabbed a ladder, and went to retrieve the alien from his ceiling. The garage, usually a sanctuary of grease and silence, had been transformed into a zone of tactical warfare. Noah Hale stood in the center of the workshop, holding a laser welder in one hand and a spray bottle of water in the other. He looked like a man who had lost control of his own existence. On the high support beam of the ceiling, 20 feet above the concrete floor, a small, striped creature was dangling by one claw, batting at the primary ventilation fan. That was Jax. Underneath the heavy workbench, a pair of large gray ears twitched in sleep. That was Ash, who had discovered that the warmth of the power generator was superior to any blanket. And sitting directly on the holographic schematic, Noah was trying to read, staring at him with unblinking glowing eyes, was the white one. Lumi. She tilted her head, watching the frustration radiate off the human pilot like heat waves. Get down, Noah said, pointing the spray bottle at the ceiling. Do not make me use this. It is tap water. It is cold. You will hate it. Jax ignored him, swinging wildly to catch a dust mote. Dad, Mara called out from the kitchen area. They are hungry again. Do we have any more of the protein mash? We went through 3 cans since yesterday, Noah shouted back, not taking his eyes off the ceiling. Mara, that was supposed to last a week. They are eating me out of house and orbit. They are growing boys, Mara said, walking into the workshop with a bowl of something that looked like gray sludge. And a growing girl. Come here, Lumi. Lumi let out a trill, a sound like a bird crossed with a modem, and hopped off the table. Noah lowered the spray bottle and rubbed his temples. It had been 48 hours. 48 hours since the crash. 48 hours since the black ship had vanished into the meteor shower, leaving him with 3 alien refugees and a crystal necklace that felt heavy in his pocket. He had established rules. Rule number 1, no names. Rule number 2, no attachment. Rule number 3, they stay in the crate until he figured out what to do. Currently, the crate was being used as a litter box. The kittens had names, and Noah had spent the last hour worrying that Ash looked a little pale. So much for rules. We cannot keep calling them by names, Mara, Noah said, watching Ash wake up and stretch his spine, arching to an impossible angle. It makes it harder when they have to leave. Leave where? Mara asked, setting the bowl down. The 3 Phelan kittens descended upon it like a swarm of locusts. The Lady Kayla, she said the bad people are hunting them. If they leave, they get hurt. They have people, Noah said, trying to convince himself as much as her. They have a planet, a culture. We are just a layover, a pit stop. We are a garage, Mara corrected. We fix things that are broken. She looked up at him, her dark eyes entirely too perceptive for a 7-year-old. Noah felt that familiar ache in his chest, the one that always flared up when she looked like Amaya. Some things cannot be fixed with a wrench, Mara, he said softly. Before he could elaborate on the complexities of interstellar politics and xenophobia, a loud pounding echoed from the main hangar bay door. The kittens froze. Their ears swiveled in unison toward the metal slab. Noah, open up, I know you are in there. I can hear the atmospheric scrubbers running at full power. It was Sasha, the mechanic from 2 hangars down. She was 60 years old, had hands like hydraulic clamps, and possessed a nose for gossip that rivaled long-range sensors. Hide them, Noah hissed. Where? Mara whispered, panic rising in her voice. The cockpit of the Rusty Sparrow, Noah ordered, scooping up Ash and shoving him into Mara's arms. Go, now, and keep them quiet. If Jax tries to eat the throttle cable again, sit on him. Mara scrambled up the ladder of the freighter. Noah waited until the airlock hissed shut behind her before he hit the door release. The heavy door rolled up, revealing the dusty, sun-bleached landscape of Illyris and Sasha, who was wiping grease from her forehead with a rag. You are locked down tight today, Hale, Sasha said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. She looked around her eyes, scanning the shadows. And you are running the air filters high. Did you blow a gasket on a fuel line? Chemical spill? Noah lied smoothly. Cleaning solvent, toxic fumes. You should not be in here without a mask, Sasha. I have breathed worse things than solvent, she scoffed. Listen, Hugo down at the dock sent me. He wants to know if you can take a look at the grav couplings on the transport shuttle. He says they are singing. Singing? You know what he means. Making that noise. The one only you can hear. She tapped her ear. The magic ears. Noah flinched. He hated that reputation. It is not magic. It is just acoustic resonance. Bearings wear out, they vibrate. Whatever, Sasha said, walking deeper into the garage. She paused near the workbench. Smells like wet fur in here. I told you, Noah said, stepping in front of her to block her view of the half-eaten bowl of mash. Solvent. It has a musk. Musky solvent, Sasha deadpanned. She looked at him suspiciously. You look like you have not slept in a week. And why is there a tail hanging out of the Sparrow's auxiliary vent? Noah's heart stopped. He turned slowly. Sure enough, a long striped tail, Jax's tail, was dangling casually from the heat vent of the freighter, swaying back and forth like a pendulum. That, Noah said, his brain firing on emergency power, is a cleaning brush. Static electricity makes it move. Sasha stared at the tail. Then she stared at Noah. Then she stared back at the tail. A cleaning brush, she repeated. New model. Synthetic fibers. Very expensive. Sasha snorted. She walked over to the ship, reached up and poked the tail. It twitched violently and retracted with a startled hiss. Since when do brushes hiss, Noah? Sasha crossed her arms. Noah sighed, his shoulders slumping. It is a cat, okay, a mutant cat. From the trader's belt. It has dermatological issues and anger management problems. I am fostering it for a client. Sasha looked at the vent, then back at him. Her expression softened, just a fraction. You always were a soft touch for strays, Hale. Even when you try to act like a hermit. She turned around, heading for the door. I will tell Hugo you will look at the shuttle tomorrow. And Noah, get that cat some ointment. It sounds ugly. As the door closed, Noah slumped against the landing gear. He exhaled a breath he felt he had been holding for 10 minutes. The coast is clear, he whispered loudly. The cockpit canopy popped open. Mara's head appeared, her hair a mess. Did she buy it? She thinks we are running a hospice for ugly cats, Noah said. It will hold for now. But we cannot keep this up, Mara. This world is too small for secrets. Night fell over Illyris, bringing the deep, bone-chilling cold of the vacuum closer. The garage was dim, lit only by the amber glow of the heater coils and the soft blue luminescence of the gas giant through the viewport. Noah was working on the fuel manifold of the Sparrow, trying to lose himself in the simple binary logic of mechanics. Bolt A goes into slot B if pressure exceeds tolerance vent. Simple. Predictable. A scream shattered the calm. It came from the loft. Noah dropped the manifold and sprinted for the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. He burst into the small living area to find Mara sitting upright in her bed, her eyes wide and unseeing, thrashing against invisible restraints. The line, she screamed. The line is breaking, Mom. The line. Mara, I am here, Noah gasped, rushing to the bedside. He grabbed her shoulders, trying to ground her. Wake up, baby. You are safe. You are in the garage. She was shaking violently, sweat plastering her hair to her forehead. "It was the purple dark," she sobbed, burying her face in Noah's chest. "It pulled the ship apart. Like paper. She was right there, Dad. She was right there." Noah held her tight, staring at the wall. The nightmare was always the same. The accident that had taken Amaya. A spatial distortion, a freak gravity wave that the navigation computers hadn't predicted. Noah had been piloting a different ship a mile away. He had watched the distortion twist Amaya's vessel, stretching it, breaking it. He hadn't heard the song then. Or maybe he had and he had ignored it. That was the guilt that ate him alive. If he had been listening, could he have warned her? "It is okay," Noah whispered, though he knew it wasn't. It was just a dream. A soft weight landed on the bed. Noah looked down. Lumi, the white kitten, had jumped up. She did not look at Noah. She walked straight to Mara, her glowing eyes fixed on the weeping girl. Lumi sat on Mara's chest right over her heart. She began to purr. It wasn't a normal purr. It was a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to match the frequency of Mara's sobbing. Mara's breath hitched. She looked at the kitten. "Lumi!" The kitten lowered her head and bumped it against Mara's chin. Then she opened her mouth and made a sound. It wasn't a meow. It was a clumsy, mimicking syllable. "Sci-Fi," Noah froze. He looked at the kitten, then at his daughter. "Did she just—" "She is learning," Mara whispered, wiping her eyes. She wrapped her arms around the small creature. "I taught her yesterday. Safe. We are safe." Lumi closed her eyes and increased the volume of her purring. The sound seemed to fill the room, pushing back the shadows of the nightmare. Noah felt the tension in his own shoulders loosen, reacting to the frequency. It was a healing sound, a biological countermeasure to fear. "She knew you were scared," Noah said, amazed. "She heard me," Mara said. "Like you hear the engines, Dad. She hears feelings." Noah watched them, the human child and the alien child, comforting each other in the dark. He realized then that he had lost the battle. There was no sending them back. There was no unringing this bell. They were entangled now, bound by shared trauma and shared comfort. He stayed there until Mara fell back asleep, Lumi curled into a ball against her neck. Then, needing to clear his head, he went back down to the workshop floor. He needed air. He walked to the side door and opened it, letting the freezing lunar wind bite at his face. "You should not leave the door open," a voice said from the shadows. "Heat is expensive." Noah spun around, raising his wrench. A figure detached itself from the darkness of the scrap pile. It was Saris. She looked terrible. Her tunic was torn, stained with orange dust and dried blood. She was favoring her left leg, and her tail was wrapped tight around her waist as if holding herself together. But her eyes, those gold-piercing eyes, were clear. "You came back," Noah said, lowering the wrench. "I thought you were halfway to the outer rim with your sister." "Kayla led them away," Saris said, her voice raspy. She limped toward the light of the doorway. "I could not go. I had to know they were alive." "They are alive," Noah said. "They are currently sleeping in my bed, eating my food, and terrorizing my neighbors. You have terrible children." A faint, dry chuckle escaped Saris's lips. "They take after their father. He was stubborn." She stumbled, her knee giving way. Noah moved instinctively, catching her before she hit the concrete. She was warm, feverishly so. He felt the vibration of her chest, not a purr, but a rattle. "You need a doctor," Noah said, hoisting her arm over his shoulder. "A real one, not a mechanic with a first aid kit." "No doctors," Saris gasped. "They will report me. Just let me rest. Please." Noah didn't argue. He half-carried, half-dragged her inside, kicking the door shut behind them. He brought her to the cot in the corner, the one he had set up for emergencies. "I have antiseptic," Noah said, grabbing the kit. "And I have painkillers meant for humans. I do not know if they will work on Phelan physiology or kill you." "We are not so different," Saris grunted, as she sat down, wincing as she adjusted her leg. Carbon-based, oxygen-breathing, stubborn. Noah knelt to inspect the wound on her leg. It was a burn, ugly and cauterized. Laser graze. Mining drone, she said. I hid in the old lithium shafts. The automated security is aggressive. You stayed on the moon, Noah looked up at her. With the hunters circling, that is suicide. That is parenting, Saris corrected him. She looked around the garage, her eyes landing on the empty bowl of mash on the floor. You are feeding them processed protein. It is all I have, Noah said defensively, applying the gel to her leg. I am a pilot, not a nutritionist. And milk. I gave them milk. Cow milk is full of lactose. It gives them gas, Saris said, though there was no malice in her tone. But thank you for the intent. She watched him work. Her gaze was intense, unsettling. Noah felt like he was being scanned not by technology, but by something older. You have the ears, she said suddenly. Noah paused the bandage in his hand. What? I watched you, she said. Before I came in, you were listening to the fuel pump on that freighter. You adjusted the valve before the pressure gauge even moved. You heard the flow change. I have been a mechanic a long time, Noah muttered, finishing the bandage. You learn the sounds. No, Saris reached out her hand, hovering near his face, but not touching. It is not learning. It is a gift. You are a star singer, or a dormant one. I am human, Noah said, standing up and stepping back. I do not sing stars. I fix engines. The star singers of my people, Saris said, her voice dropping to a whisper, can hear the gravity wells. They can sing the frequencies that stabilize the wormholes. That is how we navigated the deep void before the computer age. We thought humans were deaf to the song, but you hear it. I hear noise, Noah said sharply. It is just noise, and usually it means something is about to break. Or something is about to begin, Saris countered. She tried to stand, but grimaced and sank back down. Stay there, Noah ordered. I will get you some water, and maybe some lactose-free milk if I can find a synthesizer manual. He walked to the kitchenette, feeling her eyes on his back. Why did you do it? Noah asked, not turning around. Why bring them to me? Why teach them to love humans? Because my people are dying, Saris said. The sorrow in her voice was heavy enough to crush the air in the room. Not from plague, not from war, from silence. We have isolated ourselves so long, hating you, fearing you, that we have forgotten how to adapt. We are stagnant. Kayla and I believed that the only way to save the Phelan was to break the cycle, to mix the songs. So you dumped 3 kittens on a stranger, Noah said, pouring water. I gave the future to a man who puts milk out for ghosts, Saris said. Noah froze. He turned to look at her. I saw the scans, Saris said gently. Every night. For 5 years. A bowl of milk. A signal. You are waiting for something impossible, Noah Hale. That makes you the only one crazy enough to help us. Noah stared at her. He wanted to be angry. He wanted to tell her to get out. But looking at her battered hunted, and looking at him with a terrifying amount of hope, he couldn't do it. You can sleep in the loft, Noah said gruffly. The couch is terrible, but it is better than the floor. But if you shed on my flight jackets, I am billing you. A small, genuine smile broke through Saris's pain. Understood, pilot. The week that followed was a blur of domestic improvisation. Noah found himself living a double life. By day, he was the grumpy mechanic of Illyris, fixing thrusters and complaining about the weather. By night, he was running a clandestine nursery and a safe house for a fugitive alien princess. Saris recovered with frightening speed. Within 2 days, she was limping around the garage. Within 4, she was reorganizing his tool bench, which drove him insane, and teaching the kittens how to hunt, using his spare washers as prey. The dynamic was strange. It was tense, filled with cultural misunderstandings. Saris thought Noah's reliance on written manuals was hilarious. She believed machines had temperaments that needed to be coaxed. Noah thought Saris's habit of sleeping on the highest rafter was a safety hazard. But there were moments. One evening, Noah was struggling to calibrate a navigation sensor. The interference from the gas giant was making the signal fuzzy. "You are fighting the current," Saris said, appearing beside him. She leaned over the console, her shoulder brushing his arm. She smelled like ozone and dried flowers. "Listen to the static. There is a rhythm." "It is random noise," Noah grumbled. "No," she said. She closed her eyes and began to hum. It was a low, vibrating sound, barely audible. Noah felt the hair on his arms stand up. The sound wasn't just noise, it was interacting with the sensor. The static on the screen smoothed out, aligning into a clear sine wave. "How did you do that?" Noah asked, staring at her. "I harmonized with the interference," Saris said, opening her eyes. They were inches from him. "I pushed back against the pressure. You try." "I cannot hum gravity away, Saris." "You do not have to hum," she whispered. "Just listen. Find the gap in the noise and push." Noah looked at the screen. He closed his eyes. He listened to the chaotic screech of the radiation outside. And there, buried deep in the static, he heard it. A gap. A silence. He focused on it, imagining his will as a wedge driving into that silence. The sensor beeped. Lock acquired. Noah opened his eyes. The coordinates were perfect. He looked at Saris. She was smiling, a look of fierce pride on her face. "See," she said. "Not just a mechanic." For a moment, the air between them was charged with something that wasn't just physics. Noah felt a pull, a gravitational attraction that had nothing to do with the moon they stood on. Then, the alarm blared. It wasn't the sensor alarm. It was the settlement-wide alert siren. "Atmospheric warning," the automated voice of the station computer boomed. "Veil surge detected. Category 4. All vessels grounded. Secure all loose cargo." Noah ran to the viewport. The sky above Illyris was changing. The beautiful blue bands of the gas giant were churning, turning a bruised, violent purple. The Veil surge. A massive storm of charged particles and gravity waves that erupted from the giant's magnetosphere every decade. It usually gave weeks of warning. This one had appeared out of nowhere. "It is too early," Noah said. "The season is not for another month." "It is not natural," Saris said. Her ears flattened against her head. She was looking not at the storm, but at the upper atmosphere. "Look, there." Noah squinted. High above the cloud layer, hanging like a vulture, was a ship. It was large, angular, and unmistakably aggressive. "That is not a storm chaser," Noah said. "It is a hunter-class frigate," Saris said, her voice cold. "It is Carrick Thalen." He tracked the ion trail of the crash. "He is here." The comms unit on the wall crackled to life. "Noah, are you there?" It was Hugo, the dockmaster. His voice sounded strained. Noah hit the button. "I am here, Hugo. Listen, we got a problem. Aside from the surge that is about to fry our electronics. We got a vessel hailing us. The identification code is Old Phelan. They are demanding landing clearance." Noah's grip on the comms unit tightened. "Tell them the port is closed due to weather." "I did," Hugo said. "They said they do not care about the weather. They said they are looking for lost cargo. They said they have scanners that are picking up biological signatures matching their property in Sector 4. That is your sector, Noah." Noah looked at Saris. She had gone perfectly still. "Stall them, Hugo," Noah said. "Tell them my sensors are jammed. Tell them anything." "I can stall them for maybe an hour before the surge hits," Hugo said. "But Noah, if you have something out there, you should not have gotten rid of it. This guy sounds serious. He sounds like he is ready to glass the landing pad." The line clicked dead. Noah turned to the room. Mara was standing at the bottom of the stairs, holding Lumi. Jax and Ash were hiding behind her legs. They sensed the fear in the room. "They found us," Sarah said. "Carrick is a fanatic. He will not leave until he has the children, and he will not leave witnesses." "He cannot land in a Category 4 surge," Noah said. "His sensors will be blinded." "He does not need to land," Sarah said. "He can level this garage from orbit." "Not if he wants the kids alive," Noah argued. "He wants the heritage alive," Sarah said bitterly. "He will cut them out of the wreckage if he has to." Noah looked at his garage, his home. He looked at Mara, terrified. He looked at the kittens who had stopped playing and were watching him with wide, trusting eyes. And he looked at Saris, the woman who had crashed into his life and forced him to feel something again. The safe option was to hand them over. Give Carrick the kittens. Saris might escape in the confusion. Noah and Mara would survive. He could go back to being the lonely pilot who put milk out for ghosts. But then, he remembered the sound of Lumi purring on Mara's chest. He remembered the feeling of harmonizing with the sensor. He remembered Amaya. If you leave a light on something lost, might find its way home. He hadn't been able to save Amaya. The universe had been too big, and he had been too small. But this garage, this was his territory. "We are not surrendering," Noah said. His voice was steady. "Noah," Sarah started. "You cannot fight a frigate with a wrench." "No," Noah said. He walked over to the control panel of the garage. He began typing commands, overriding the safety locks on the underground fuel tanks. "But I know this moon. I know the magnetic tunnels in the mines. And I know how to fly in bad weather." He turned to them. "Pack your things," Noah said. "We are going underground. If Carrick wants a fight, he can come down into the mud to get it." Outside, the first wave of the Veil surge hit the atmosphere. The sky turned a screaming violet, and the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. The storm had arrived, and with it, the hunter. The sky over Illyris did not darken, it bruised. The usual comforting azure of the gas giant turned a sickly, throbbing violet, heavy with the weight of unseen energy. The air tasted of ozone and static electricity, making the hair on Noah's arms stand up permanently. The Veil surge had arrived, and it was screaming. To anyone else, the wind was just wind, howling at 100 kilometers an hour. To Noah, it was a cacophony. The atmospheric shielding of the settlement was vibrating at a frequency that felt like a drill pressing against his molars. He gritted his teeth, tightening the magnetic clamps on the heavy blast doors of the main community shelter. "That is the last one, Hugo," Noah shouted, over the roar of the gale. "The seals are holding at 90% efficiency. It is the best we can do." Hugo, the dockmaster, wiped sweat from his bald head. "It will have to hold. We have half the settlement packed in there. The other half is in the mines. Noah, you are sure about the Sparrow leaving it in the garage?" "The garage has reinforced struts," Noah lied. He couldn't tell Hugo that the garage was currently housing 3 illegal aliens and their mother. "It will be fine. I need to get back to Mara." "Right. You get back and keep your head down. This surge feels wrong. The air is too heavy." Noah nodded and sprinted across the open tarmac. The gravity fluctuations were already starting. One step felt heavy, like wading through mud. The next felt weightless, threatening to launch him into the upper atmosphere. He had to time his movements to the rhythm of the ground, a dance he hated, but knew by heart. He reached the garage just as a new sound tore through the storm. It wasn't thunder. Thunder rolled. This sound cut. It was the high-pitched whine of ion thrusters fighting against a gravity shear. Noah stopped shielding his eyes against the stinging dust. A ship was descending. It wasn't a civilian transport. It was a predatory wedge of black metal, sleek and armored, ignoring the landing beacons and coming down hard, right on the edge of his property. The landing gear hit the concrete with a bone-jarring crunch, cracking the slab. Steam hissed from the vents as the engines cycled down, but the weapons turrets remained active, tracking back and forth. The ramp dropped. Noah didn't wait. He ran for the side door of his garage, punched in the code, and slid inside. "They are here," Noah announced, breathless. The interior of the garage was tense. Saris was standing by the workbench, leaning heavily on a crutch Noah had fashioned from a hydraulic strut. She had cleaned the grease from her face, and despite her injuries, she looked regal. Terrified, but regal. Mara was sitting on the floor, surrounded by the kittens. She had built a fortress out of toolboxes and was reading them a story about a brave little toaster. "I know," Saris said, her ears swiveling toward the main door. "I can hear his boots on the concrete. It is Carrick." "Get in the shelter," Noah ordered. "The panic room under the floor. Take the kids." "It is too late," Saris said calmly. "He has thermal scanners. He knows exactly where we are." Bang! The main hangar door didn't open. It shook. Someone was hitting it with a kinetic ram. "Open the door, human!" a voice amplified by a speaker boomed. It was deep, authoritative, and utterly devoid of warmth. "By the authority of the Keth High Council, I demand the return of the stolen heritage." Noah looked at Saris. She nodded once, a slow resignation of fate. Noah walked to the control panel and hit the release. The heavy door rolled up slowly. Standing in the swirling violet mist of the storm was a tall, Phelan male. He wore armor that looked like it was grown, rather than forged chitinous plates of dark green and black. Behind him stood two guards, their weapons raised but not pointed directly at Noah. Carrick Thalen stepped into the garage. He was imposing with a mane of dark fur around his neck and a scar running through his left eye. He looked at the garage, the oil stains, the hanging wires, the half-disassembled ship with undisguised disgust. "So," Carrick said, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on Saris. "This is where you chose to hide the future of our people. A junkyard." "It is a home," Saris said, stepping forward. She pushed the crutch away and stood on her own, wincing, but holding her head high. "Something you would not understand, Carrick." "I understand duty." Carrick stepped closer, ignoring Noah completely. "I understand that you and your sister kidnapped 3 children of the bloodline. You violated the isolation protocols. You exposed them to—" He waved a hand at Noah. "This." "I exposed them to kindness," Saris said. "We were starving in the void, Carrick. Not for food, but for connection. The council wants to keep us pure, but they are only keeping us lonely." "Purity is survival," Carrick roared, his composure cracking. "Look at them!" He pointed a clawed finger at the kittens. Jax had climbed onto Mara's shoulder and was hissing at the intruder. Ash was trying to hide behind Noah's leg. Lumi was just watching, her eyes wide. "They are already tainted," Carrick sneered. "Standing with a human. Depending on him. Do you think he cares? He is a human. They consume. They destroy. They do not nurture." "Hey!" Noah stepped between Carrick and the children. He held his wrench, knowing it was useless, but needing the weight of it. "I am standing right here. And I have a name." Carrick looked down at Noah. It was like a wolf looking at a rabbit that had forgotten its place in the food chain. "You are an anchor human," Carrick said coldly. "A dangerous, heavy anchor dragging my people down into the hell of your chaotic culture. I am cutting the line." He motioned to his guards. "Secure the children. If the human resists, stun him. If he persists, kill him." "No," Mara screamed. She wrapped her arms around Ash and Lumi. "You cannot take them. They are my brothers and sister." Carrick paused. He looked at the human child, claiming kinship with the Phelan. A flicker of something, confusion perhaps, or revulsion, crossed his face. "Disgusting," Carrick muttered. Before the guards could move, the ground lurched violently. It wasn't the rhythmic shaking of the earlier tremors. This was a heave, as if the moon itself was trying to shrug off its skin. The lights in the garage flickered and died, replaced instantly by the red emergency strobes. The comms unit on the wall shrieked, "Mayday, Mayday, this is Transport Alpha 9. The mooring cables have snapped. I repeat, the cables have snapped. We are drifting. Noah's blood ran cold. He lunged for the comms. Hugo, talk to me. Noah. Hugo's voice was barely audible over the static. The surge hit the northern dock. The Green Bounty, the clamps failed. The whole agricultural platform is loose. It is drifting toward the upper gravity well. Noah looked at the schematic on the wall. The Green Bounty wasn't just a ship. It was a massive hydroponic barge. It carried 80% of the settlement's food supply for the next winter. And if it drifted into the upper well during a surge, it will be torn apart, Noah said, staring at the radio. And the debris field will rain down right on the residential sector. It will wipe out the shelter. We have no pilots, Hugo screamed. The navigation computers are fried. Nobody can fly in this soup. We need a tow, Noah, but nobody can get a lock. The garage went silent, save for the howling wind outside. Carrick looked at the comms unit, then at Noah. The hostility in his eyes was replaced by a sharp, calculating assessment. The ship carries food, Carrick asked. Food for the whole moon, Saris said, her voice urgent. And if it breaks up, the kinetic impact will kill everyone, including us, including the kittens. Carrick cursed in his own language, a guttural sound. My pilot cannot fly in a Category 4 surge. The interference blinds the sensors. We would be flying blind. Not blind, Saris said softly. She turned to Noah. Noah felt the weight of her gaze. He felt the weight of Carrick's stare. He felt the floor vibrating under his boots, humming that chaotic, terrifying song of the storm. No, Noah said, backing away. Do not look at me. I am a cargo hauler. I fly milk runs. You are a star singer, Saris said. I saw you harmonize with the sensor. You can hear the gravity waves, Noah. You are the only one who can find the safe currents in the storm. I am not a wizard, Noah shouted. I just have sensitive ears. That is not the same as flying a tow cable into a hurricane. Noah. Saris stepped closer, grabbing his shoulders. Listen to the storm. Really listen. What do you hear? Noah closed his eyes. He didn't want to listen. He wanted to hide. But the sound was inescapable. The wind wasn't just roaring. It was screaming in layers. There was the high shriek of the ionosphere, the low bass of the tectonic plates, and in between, there were gaps. Silence. Thin, threading needles of calm amidst the chaos. I hear the spaces, Noah whispered. Those are the paths, Saris said. You can fly them. You can save the ship. I cannot, Noah opened his eyes, panic rising in his chest. I failed before. Amaya died because I was not fast enough, because I did not listen hard enough. I cannot do it again. I cannot be responsible for them falling. He looked at the kittens. If he left, if he died up there, who would protect them? Who would protect Mara? So you will let them die here instead. The question didn't come from Saris. It came from Mara. She was standing up, tears streaming down her dirty face, holding Lumi so tight, her knuckles were white. Mara. If you are their dad, Mara said, her voice trembling but fierce. If you are really their dad now, do you let the ship fall? Like you let Mom's ship fall? The words hit Noah like a physical blow. It was cruel. It was unfair. It was exactly what a terrified child would say when she needed a hero and only had a father. The silence stretched heavy and suffocating. Carrick watched the interaction, his ears twitching. He looked at the human male, seeing the devastating pain on his face. The child strikes deep, Carrick observed dryly. Noah took a breath. It was a shaky, ragged breath. He looked at his hands. They were trembling. He clenched them into fists until the trembling stopped. The Firefly, Noah said, his voice low. The old tug in the back. It has analog controls. No flight computer to get fried. He looked up at Saris. I cannot sing the frequencies, Noah said. I can hear them, but I cannot project them to stabilize the hull. I need an amplifier. I will go, Sarah said instantly. I can sing into the comm system. You are injured, Carrick barked. You will die from the G-force. Then I die, Sarah snapped. I am coming too. Carrick stepped forward. Noah blinked. Excuse me. There is no passenger seat for an angry warlord. I am not letting you destroy the last Starsinger of the Keth line, Carrick said, checking the power cell on his wrist weapon. And I do not trust a human to save my people's legacy without supervision. I will man the tow winch. You know how to operate a manual winch? Noah asked skeptically. I laid siege to the Citadel of Storms, Carrick said haughtily. I think I can operate a cable. Fine. Noah grabbed his helmet from the bench. Mara, get in the panic room. Take the kittens. Lock the door from the inside. Do not open it for anyone but me. Promise you will come back, Mara whispered. Noah knelt down. He kissed her forehead. He didn't promise. He never promised things he couldn't guarantee. Keep the milk warm, he said. The Firefly was an ugly ship. It was essentially two massive engines, strapped to a cockpit that looked like a fishbowl. It smelled of old leather and stale coffee. Noah strapped himself into the pilot's seat. Saris took the co-pilot chair, wincing as she buckled the harness over her injuries. Carrick squeezed himself into the rear engineering station, looking ridiculously oversized for the small jump seat. Pre-flight check, Noah said, flipping switches. Hydraulics. Green. Ceres set her hands flying over the secondary panel. Winch. Operational, Carrick grunted. Though this technology is primitive, it uses physical gears. Gears do not get confused by radiation sunshine, Noah muttered. Firing main thrusters. The Firefly shuddered as the engines roared to life. Noah gripped the yoke. It vibrated in his hands, a live thing. Opening hangar roof, Noah commanded. The blast shields above them retracted. The world outside was a nightmare. The sky was a swirling vortex of purple and black. Debris was flying everywhere, rocks, metal sheets, dust. Hanging on, Noah said. He punched the throttle. The Firefly shot upward, not smoothly, but with a violent lurch. As soon as they cleared the garage walls, the storm grabbed them. It felt like driving a car off a cliff into a tornado. The ship was tossed sideways. The artificial gravity compensators whined and failed immediately. Noah's stomach was shoved into his throat. Stabilizers are gone, Saris shouted over the roar. I know. Noah fought the yoke, his muscles straining. Sensors are dead. I am flying visual. You cannot see anything, Carrick yelled from the back. I do not need to see. Noah closed his eyes for a split second. Listen. The roar was deafening. But there, to the left, a dip in the pressure, a lower note. Noah banked hard left. The ship groaned, metal screaming against the stress, but they slipped into a pocket of relatively calm air. How are you doing that? Carrick asked, his voice tinged with genuine shock. He is dancing, Saris whispered. She leaned forward, pressing her hand against the dashboard. She began to sing. It wasn't a song with words. It was a high, piercing vocalization that cut through the rumble of the engines. Noah heard it, not just with his ears, but in his bones. The sound wrapped around the ship, creating a harmonic resonance that stiffened the hull against the crushing gravity. Keep going, Noah gritted out. Target is 12 clicks north-northeast. Altitude 4,000. They climbed. The higher they got, the worse it became. The veil surge was warping the light, making the horizon curve in impossible shapes. There, Carrick shouted. Through the swirling dust, a massive shape loomed. The Green Bounty. It was drifting sideways, listing heavily, heading straight for the upper atmosphere, sheer a wall of gravity that would crush it like a soda can. It is moving too fast, Noah said. I have to match speed to grapple. If you match speed, we will be pulled into the sheer too, Carrick warned. Then be ready with that winch, Noah snapped. I am going to swing us past it. You have one shot, Carrick. One shot to hit the main anchor point. If you miss, We do not have fuel to try again. I do not miss, Carrick growled. Noah pushed the throttle to 110%. The engines screamed in protest. The Firefly dove toward the massive barge. Saris, I need more shield, Noah yelled. Saris's voice rose, hitting a note so high it cracked the glass on the fuel gauge. The ship shuddered, but held together as they punched through a wall of kinetic hail. Now, Noah screamed. Fire! In the back, Carrick slammed his fist onto the release mechanism. The harpoon shot out from the belly of the Firefly, trailing a thick Durasteel cable. It flew through the chaotic air, seeking the barge. The impact vibrated through the entire ship. Hit! Carrick yelled. Reeling intention maximum! The cable went taut. The Firefly jerked violently, nearly throwing Noah out of his seat. The weight of the massive barge acted like an anchor, dragging them backward toward the sheer. Full power! Noah slammed the throttle forward. Come on, you piece of junk, pull! The engines flared blue-white. The frame of the ship groaned. Noah could hear the rivets popping. We are not moving, Saris cried, her voice straining. The drag is too heavy. Noah looked at the gravity shear ahead. It was a wall of black distortion. They were 10 seconds from hitting it. I have to find a slipstream, Noah said frantically. I have to. He closed his eyes again. The panic was screaming in his head. You're going to die. You're going to fail them. Shut up, he told the fear. Listen. The storm was loud, but under the storm, the barge. The barge was resonating. It was a massive hollow drum. And the shear was a waterfall. There was a gap, a tiny, impossible gap between the barge's resonance and the shear's frequency. Carrick, give me slack, Noah shouted. What? Carrick roared. If I give slack, we lose momentum. Do it, Carrick cursed, but he released the brake on the winch. The cable spooled out. The Firefly shot forward, freed from the weight. Are you insane? Carrick yelled. You are flying us into the shear. Not into it, Noah said, his eyes snapped open, blazing with focus. Through it. He banked the ship perpendicular to the ground, diving straight at the wall of black gravity. Saris, sing the lower octave, ground us. Saris dropped her pitch, a deep, mournful thrum. Noah pulled up at the last second. He whipped the ship around the edge of the gravity well, using the centrifugal force of the storm itself. The cable snapped tight again. The whip crack of energy transferred down the line. The green bounty was yanked sideways, violently pulled out of the path of the shear and into the slipstream Noah had found. By the ancestors, Carrick whispered. He used the storm as a slingshot. Do not celebrate yet. Noah wrestled with the controls. We are heavy. We are coming down hard. Everyone brace for impact. They dragged the barge back toward the settlement, fighting every inch of the way. The descent was brutal. The heat shielding was stripping away. Landing gear is jammed, Saris reported. The hydraulics are frozen. We are doing a belly flop then, Noah said grimly. Carrick, cut the cable when we are 50 meters up. Let the barge drop into the dampening field. Acknowledged. They roared over the landing pad. The barge dropped its emergency chutes, firing landing with a massive earth-shaking thud that cracked the tarmac but held. The Firefly was not so lucky. Cutting cable! Carrick shouted. The ship lurched upward, freed, but they were coming in too fast. Hold on! Noah screamed. He pulled the nose up, trying to flare. The belly of the ship hit the ground. The sound was deafening metal, shrieking against stone. Sparks showered like fireworks. The ship slid, spinning uncontrollably across the tarmac. It smashed through a retention wall, flipped once, and came to rest upside down in a pile of wreckage near the edge of the garage. Silence. Then, the crackle of fire. Noah coughed. The world was upside down. Smoke was filling the cockpit. He couldn't feel his legs. The console had crushed inward, pinning him to the seat. Saris, he rasped. I am here. Her voice was weak. He turned his head. She was hanging from her harness, blood dripping from her nose, but alive. "Carrick." "I am functional," the Phelan groaned from the back. "Though I will never complain about manual gears again." "Get out," Noah said. "The fuel lines, I can smell them. It is going to blow." "Not without you." Saris unbuckled her harness. She dropped to the ceiling, now the floor, and crawled toward him. "My legs are pinned," Noah said. "Go, save the kids." "The kids are safe," Saris said, grabbing the wreckage, pinning his legs. She pulled. Her muscles strained, her teeth bared in a snarl of effort. "I am saving the dad." "Let me help," Carrick's voice came from behind. The large male squeezed forward. He didn't look malicious anymore. He looked shaken. Together, the two aliens pulled. Noah screamed as the metal scraped against his shin, but he felt it give. "Pull!" Carrick roared. With a final screech of tearing metal, Noah was free. They dragged him out of the shattered canopy, just as the fuel tank ignited. A ball of orange fire engulfed the Firefly, blowing the cockpit apart. The blast wave knocked them all into the dirt. Noah lay on his back, staring up at the sky. The veil surge was passing. The violent purple was fading back to blue. The rain of debris had stopped. He tried to sit up, but the pain forced him back down. "Dad, Mara." She was running from the garage, the kittens tumbling after her. She ignored the fire, ignored the wreckage, and threw herself onto his chest. "You came back," she sobbed. Jax, Lumi, and Ash piled on top of him, purring loudly, licking his face with rough tongues. Noah groaned, but he wrapped his arms around them. "I told you to keep the milk warm." He looked up. Saris was kneeling beside him, wiping soot from her face. She was smiling, tears making tracks in the grime. And standing over them all was Carrick. The hunter watched the scene. He watched the human child hugging the Phelan children. He watched the Phelan princess kneeling in the dirt beside the human pilot. He watched the human pilot broken and bleeding, holding the future of the Keth line as if they were his own. Carrick's gaze drifted to Noah's chest. The flight suit had been torn open in the crash. Resting against Noah's skin, pulsing with a faint, steady light, was the crystal necklace, the blood key. Carrick went rigid. "The key," Carrick whispered. "Kayla gave you the key." Noah saw the look in Carrick's eyes. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something far more complicated. It was the look of a man whose entire worldview had just been shattered by a mechanic with a wrench and a bad attitude. Noah tried to cover the crystal, but his hand was too heavy. Darkness was creeping in at the edges of his vision. "We saved the food," Noah mumbled. "Tell Hugo he owes me double time." "Sleep, pilot," Saris whispered, placing her hand on his forehead. "You have guided us through the veil." The last thing Noah saw before he blacked out was the three kittens curling up against his broken legs, their purring creating a shield of sound against the rest of the universe, and Carrick Thalen dropping to one knee, not in submission, but in contemplation of a new, terrifying truth. The consciousness returned to Noah Hale, not as a flood of light, but as a slow, rhythmic throbbing in his left shin. It was a dull, heavy ache that synchronized perfectly with the beeping of a medical monitor. He opened his eyes. The ceiling was unfamiliar. It was not the rusted corrugated metal of his garage, nor was it the sterile white of a corporate hospital. It was a patchwork of acoustic foam and repurposed cargo netting. He was in the settlement's makeshift infirmary, which was essentially a converted storage bay attached to the main hangar. "You are awake," a voice said. "That is excellent. It means I do not have to explain to your daughter why her father is sleeping through lunch." Noah turned his head, a movement that sent a sharp protest down his neck. Dr. Eris was standing by the bedside, tapping a datapad with a stylus. The doctor was a man of few words and even fewer smiles, but today he looked almost amused. "How long?" Noah croaked. His throat felt like he had swallowed a handful of lunar dust. 2 days, Dr. Eris replied, not looking up. You had a compound fracture of the tibia, 3 cracked ribs, and mild concussion. Also, you smell like burnt fuel and ozone, which I cannot scrub off. I assume that is just your natural scent now. Noah tried to sit up, but a firm hand pushed him back down. Do not move, Dr. Eris ordered. The bone knitters are still running. If you disrupt the calibration, your left leg will be 2 millimeters shorter than your right, and you will walk in circles. The ship, Noah gasped. The barge, the Green Bounty. Safe, the doctor said. Parked rather ungracefully on the south apron, but safe. The hydroponics are intact. The settlement will not starve this winter. You are a hero, Noah Hale. I should probably add a surcharge to your bill. I will call it the savior tax. Noah closed his eyes. Letting out a breath he felt he had been holding since he flew the Firefly into the gravity shear. Safe. They were safe. Dad! The whisper was small, barely audible over the hum of the ventilation. Noah looked to his right. He had missed it in his initial scan of the room. Curled up on a plastic visitor chair, looking like a pile of mismatched laundry, was his family. Mara was asleep, her head resting on the edge of his mattress, her hand clutching the bedsheet. And underneath the chair, in a tangle of limbs and fur, were the kittens. Jax was using Ash as a pillow. Lumi was draped over Mara's foot. Their tails were entwined in a complex knot that defied geometry. They have not left, Dr. Eris said, his voice softening. I tried to kick the animals out. Hygiene protocols and all that. The little striped one bit me. I decided that infection was a preferable risk to dealing with their wrath. They are stubborn, Noah whispered. He reached out his hand, his fingers brushing against Mara's hair. She stirred her eyes, fluttering open. Dad! She didn't scream, but the intensity of the word filled the room. She scrambled up, careful of the wires attached to him. You are awake. Dr. Eris said you were in a coma, but Saris said you were just recharging. Saris is right, Noah rasped. Where is she? She is outside, Mara said. She is talking to the scary armor man. They are arguing about philosophy, I think. Noah's heart skipped a beat. Carrick. He had forgotten about the hunter in the relief of survival. Help me up, Noah said, grabbing the side rail. Absolutely not, Dr. Eris interjected. You are bedridden for at least another 12 hours. Doctor, Noah said, fixing him with a stare that had intimidated customs officials and pirate raiders alike. There is a Phelan warlord in my driveway, and 3 alien children under my chair. I am not staying in bed. Dr. Eris sighed a long, suffering sound. Fine, but you are taking the crutches. And if you fall, do not call me. The walk back to the garage was a slow, painful procession. Noah hobbled on the crutches, Mara walked beside him, acting as a human shield, and the 3 kittens wove between his legs, threatening to trip him with every step. The settlement had changed. Usually, when Noah walked through the main thoroughfare, people gave him a polite nod or ignored him. He was the recluse pilot, the widower, the man who talked to engines. Today, they stopped. Old Mrs. Gable, who ran the hydroponic bakery, hurried out of her shop with a basket. Noah, she called out, her face flushed. I heard you were up. Here, take this. It is synth bread, fresh from the oven. And I put some extra protein paste in for the little ones. She looked down at the kittens. Jax hissed at her. Mrs. Gable didn't flinch. She just smiled nervously. They are spirited, she said. Thank you, Mrs. Gable, Noah said, taking the basket. As they continued, it happened again and again. A mechanic offered to fix the Firefly for free, though he admitted it might be a total loss. A miner pressed a pouch of refined lithium into Noah's hand, muttering that it was good for batteries. They were grateful. But Noah could see it in their eyes, the fear. They looked at him, not just as a neighbor, but as something else. A weapon they didn't know they had. A phenomenon. Hey, Starman, Noah stopped. Hugo was leaning against the fence of the scrapyard. The dockmaster looked tired, his arm in a sling from the chaos of the storm. Hugo, Noah nodded. That was some flying, Hugo said. He spat on the dusty ground. Physics do not work like that, Noah. I checked the flight logs from the barge. You made a turn that pulled 12 Gs, without a computer. The wind was with me, Noah lied. The wind, Hugo repeated. He looked at the kittens, then at Noah. People are talking. They say you heard the storm coming before the sensors did. They say you steered that barge like you were talking to it. People talk too much, Noah said defensively. Maybe, Hugo straightened up. But listen to me, Noah. We are grateful. You saved the harvest. But if another storm comes, if something worse comes, they are going to look at you. They are going to expect miracles. And if you cannot deliver a miracle twice. He let the question hang in the air. It was a warning. Heroes are only loved as long as they are useful. I am just a mechanic, Hugo, Noah said firmly. I fix things. Right, Hugo said, turning away. Just a mechanic with a magic wrench and a pet zoo. Watch your back, Noah. Noah grit his teeth and pushed forward. The garage was ahead. The blast door was open. Inside, the scene was calm, which was more terrifying than if it had been chaotic. Saris was sitting on a crate, her leg propped up. She was polishing a piece of the Firefly's ruined hull. Across from her, sitting on Noah's favorite stool, was Carrick. The large felon had removed his helmet, revealing a face that was severe scarred, but oddly dignified. He was holding a datapad reading. You are late, Carrick said without looking up. I expected the human physiology to recover faster. It is inefficient. I took the scenic route. Noah maneuvered himself inside, collapsing onto the sofa in the lounge area. The kittens immediately abandoned him to swarm Saris, chirping and headbutting her hands. You are still here, Noah said to Carrick. I thought you would have called in the fleet by now. Carrick placed the datapad down. I considered it, but Saris made a compelling argument. I told him, Saris said, scratching Jax behind the ears, that if he takes them now, he proves the Keth are tyrants. But if he stays and observes, he might learn why the great song led us here. I am not here to learn, Carrick corrected her. I am here to audit. Audit, Noah asked. You claim, Carrick stood up his armor, clinking softly, that you can teach these children to love humans, to exist in your world without losing their soul. I believe this is impossible. I believe they will become soft, weak, and disconnected from the stars. He walked over to Noah, towering over him. So I will watch, Carrick said. I will give you time. I will see how you raise them. If I see them losing their identity, if I see them becoming pets, I will take them. And you will not be able to stop me. And if I succeed, Noah challenged, looking up into the golden, slit-pupiled eyes. Then, Carrick said, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. Then, we have a problem that not even the elders can solve, because it means everything we believe is wrong. He turned and walked toward the back of the garage, where he had set up a temporary camp. Do not get comfortable, human, Carrick called back. The clock is ticking. The next 2 weeks were an exercise in surreal domesticity. Noah's leg healed slowly, forcing him to rely on Saris for the heavy lifting in the shop. It was a strange role reversal. He sat in the chair barking instructions while the alien princess wielded the plasma cutter and the torque wrench. She was strong, surprisingly so, and she learned fast, but she had a habit of singing to the machines. You cannot tune the engine by humming at it, Noah said one afternoon, watching her work on a thruster valve. It works, Saris said, her voice muffled by the welding mask. The metal relaxes when you hit the resonant frequency. It wants to fit together. Metal does not have feelings, Saris. It has thermal expansion coefficients. She flipped up the mask and looked at him. Her fur was dusted with soot, and there was a smudge of grease on her nose. She looked beautiful. The thought hit Noah with the force of a micrometeorite. He quickly looked down at his schematic. "You are stubborn," Sarah said, walking over to him. She wiped her hands on a rag. "How is the leg?" "It throbs when the pressure changes," Noah said. "Dr. Aris says it is normal." "Here," Sarah knelt before him. "What are you doing?" "Physical therapy, Phelan style." She placed her hands on his shin directly over the break. Her palms were hot, radiating a dry, intense heat. She began to purr. It wasn't the cute, trilling purr of the kittens. This was a low, subsonic rumble that vibrated through Noah's bone. It felt strange, intrusive, yet incredibly soothing. The pain in his leg receded, replaced by a warm numbness. "We use sound to knit bone," Saris explained, her eyes closed in concentration. "It stimulates the marrow." Noah watched her. He watched the way her ears twitched with the effort, the way her whiskers trembled. "Tell me about them," Noah said softly. "The star singers. Your people." Saris didn't open her eyes, but her purr hitched for a second. "We were navigators," she said. "Long ago, before the trade routes were mapped, before the hyperspace beacons. The universe is not empty, Noah. It is full of currents. Gravity, radiation, dark matter. It flows like a river. Most species build ships to fight the river. We learn to swim in it." "And the hate?" Noah asked. "Why do you hate us?" Saris opened her eyes. The gold was dark, clouded with old pain. "Because humans do not swim," she said. "You dam the river. You bore through the mountains. When humanity first came to our sector, you brought terraformers. You silenced the planets. You destroyed the natural resonance of 3 of our cradle worlds to build parking lots and fuel depots. You made the universe quiet." Noah looked away. He knew the history of expansion. It was brutal. It was efficient. "I am sorry," he said. "It was not you," Sarah said. "But that is why Carrick is afraid. He thinks that if the kittens grow up with you, they will learn to be deaf. They will learn to silence the world instead of listening to it." "I am not deaf," Noah whispered. "Not anymore." "No," Sarah smiled, a sad, fragile thing. "You are not. That is why I crashed here. I heard you. Miles up. A single, lonely note in the silence." She moved her hand from his leg to his knee. It was an innocent touch, but the air in the garage suddenly felt very thin. "I am terrified," Noah admitted. "Not of Carrick. Of them." He gestured to the corner where the kittens were sleeping. "I am a mess, Saris. I could not save my wife. I can barely raise my daughter. And now I have 3 princelings. What if I break them?" "You will not break them," Saris said fiercely. "You gave them milk when you had nothing. You flew into a storm when you were afraid." She leaned forward, slowly, deliberately. Noah held his breath. She did not kiss him. Instead, she pressed her forehead against his. It was a shock of contact. Hard bone against hard bone, skin against fur. It wasn't soft. It was grounding. It was a declaration of presence. "I am here. You are here." Noah closed his eyes and leaned into the pressure. He felt her breath on his face. He smelled the ozone and the wildness of her. For a moment, the song of the universe wasn't chaotic. It was a duet. "We are 2 broken pilots," Saris whispered against his skin, "trying to fly a nursery without a manual." "We should write one," Noah whispered back. "Ahem." The sound was like a grinding gear. Noah and Saris pulled apart instantly. Carrick was standing by the tool bench holding a laser rifle he had been cleaning. He looked at the ceiling, then at the floor, then anywhere but at them. "The striped one," Carrick said flatly, "has managed to activate the fire suppression system in the pantry. There is foam everywhere." Noah groaned and put his head in his hands. The moment was gone, shattered by the reality of raising 3 superpowered toddlers. "I will get the mop," Sarah said, standing up quickly, her tail twitching nervously. The days turned into a routine, but the tension with Carrick never fully dissipated. It evolved. Carrick began to take the children for lessons in the backyard. Noah watched from the window, wary, but allowing it. He knew he couldn't stop them from knowing their heritage. He watched Carrick teach them how to stalk in the low gravity. He watched him teach them the felon language, a series of clicks, trills, and growls. One afternoon, Noah went outside to check on them. Carrick was sitting on a rock, with Jack Sloomy and Ash sitting in a circle around him. They were surprisingly quiet. "The stars are not eyes," Carrick was saying, his voice low and rumbling. "They are echoes. When a star dies, its song travels forever. We respect the echo. We do not shout over it." Jax raised a hand. "But Dad says the stars are balls of gas burning at millions of degrees." Carrick's eye twitched. "Your dad is technically correct, but he is spiritually blind. Gas is the medium. The song is the essence." "Can it be both?" Lumi asked. "Can it be gas and a song?" Carrick paused. He looked at the small white kitten. She stared back with unblinking curiosity. "Perhaps," Carrick conceded slowly. "That is a difficult harmony to master." "Dad says difficult things are just puzzles," Ash rumbled. Carrick looked up and saw Noah standing there. "They ask too many questions," Carrick grumbled. "In the training creches, initiates listen. They do not debate." "They are growing up free, Carrick," Noah said, limping over to sit on a crate nearby. "That means they get to ask why." "Freedom is dangerous," Carrick said. "It leads to chaos. Look at you. You denied your gift for years. You lived in pain because you had no discipline to control the noise." Noah flinched. The hit was accurate. It was, "I did not have a teacher," Noah said quietly. "And they do," Carrick gestured to the kittens. "But for how long? I cannot stay here forever, Noah. The council is growing impatient. I have been delaying them. But I cannot hide a supernova." "What are you saying?" "I am saying," Carrick stood up, brushing dust from his armor, "that a decision must be made, soon." The decision came crashing down 3 nights later. It started with an argument in the garage. The atmosphere was thick with humidity, the air scrubbers struggling against the coming summer heat. "It is a compromise." Carrick slammed his fist onto the workbench. "It is the only way to ensure their safety." Noah stood his ground, leaning on his cane. "It is segregation, Carrick. You want to put them in a box." "I am offering a sanctuary," Carrick roared. "There is an outpost on the fringe, an old monastery. I can take them there. You can visit. We will teach them the ways and you can teach them mechanics. Whatever. But they will be safe from the council's purge." "They are children," Noah shouted back. "They need a home, not a monastery, not a boarding school in the middle of nowhere. They need to be tucked in at night. They need to play with Mara. They need love, Carrick, not just training." "Love will not stop a plasma bolt," Carrick retorted. "If the elders find them here living like humans, they will declare them corrupted. They will order a cleansing. Do you understand? They will burn this moon." Saris stood between them, looking from one to the other. She looked exhausted. "Carrick is right about the danger," she said softly. "The elders are rigid. They will not accept this experiment." "So we fight," Noah said. "We cannot fight in Armada, Noah," Saris said, her voice trembling. Maybe the outpost is the best chance." Noah looked at her betrayed. "You are giving up." "I am trying to keep them alive," Saris cried. "I am their mother. I do not care about the experiment anymore. I care about them breathing." The silence that followed was heavy and cold. Noah looked at the crystal hanging around his neck. He could feel it pulsing. It was synchronized with his heart. He thought about Amaya. He thought about the silence he had lived in for 5 years. He thought about the noise of the last month, the chaos, the laughter, the fear. "No," Noah said. He walked over to the viewport. The stars were out clear and bright. "We do not send them away," Noah said firmly. We do not hide them. If we hide them, we teach them that they are something to be ashamed of. We teach them that humans and Phelan cannot exist together. He turned back to face them. We stay, Noah said. We build a life here. If the elders come, we talk to them. If they attack, we defend. But we do not run. I am done running. Carrick stared at him. For a long moment, the hunter did not speak. Then he let out a long, hissing sigh. You are a fool, Carrick said. A stubborn, reckless human fool. He walked to the comms console on the wall. What are you doing? Saris asked, panic rising. I am calling them, Carrick said. No, Saris lunged, but Carrick held up a hand. I am not calling the fleet, Carrick said. I am calling Elder Saren, just her. She is the oldest. She remembers the time before the silence. If anyone can be convinced, it is her. He punched in a frequency. It was a complex encrypted code. She is 2 sectors away, Carrick said. She will be here by dawn. Prepare yourself, Noah Hale. You have 1 night. 1 night to prepare your argument. Because when she lands, she will either bless this union or she will end it. Carrick walked out of the garage, heading for his ship, to send the signal securely. Noah and Saris were left alone in the dim light. Elder Saren, Saris whispered, her face pale. She is the one who exiled us. She is the keeper of the law. Then we have to change the law, Noah said. He walked over to Saris and took her hands. They were cold. 1 night, Noah said. Let's make it count. They didn't spend the night planning arguments. They didn't spend it sharpening weapons. They spent it making dinner. It was a ridiculous, chaotic meal. Noah made spaghetti because it was the only thing he could cook that didn't come from a can. The kittens found the concept of long noodles fascinating and frustrating. Jax ended up wearing a meatball as a hat. Ash fell asleep face first in the garlic bread. Mara and Lumi sat together, sharing a plate, communicating in a mix of basic and chirps. Noah sat at the head of the table, a sheet of plywood over 2 fuel drums, and watched them. He saw the mess. He saw the sauce on the floor. He saw Saris laughing as she tried to clean Jax's face. He saw Carrick standing in the doorway, refusing to sit, but accepting a plate of pasta, eating it with a grim determination, as if it were a tactical ration. He heard the song. It wasn't a symphony of spheres. It wasn't the grand music of the cosmos. It was the clinking of forks, the laughter of children, the hum of the refrigerator. It was the most beautiful thing Noah had ever heard. Later, after the children were asleep, piled into a heap in the loft, Noah found Saris sitting on the roof of the garage. He climbed out the window, wincing, as his leg protested, and sat beside her. The air was cool. The gas giant hung above them, a massive, watchful eye. "Are you afraid?" Saris asked, looking at the stars. "Yes," Noah said. "Me too." She leaned her head on his shoulder. This time, it wasn't a formal greeting. It was just resting. "Noah," she said softly. "If they take us tomorrow, if they take me." "They won't," Noah said. "But if they do," she insisted. "I need you to know. The song I heard when I was falling, the one that led us here." "Yeah." "It wasn't just a generic signal," Saris said. She turned her face to his. Her eyes were glowing softly in the dark. "It was grief. It was love. It was so loud, Noah. You loved her so much that it echoed across the vacuum." Noah felt a lump in his throat. He thought of Amaya. "She would have loved this," Noah whispered. "She would have loved the kittens. She would have loved you." Saris smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "Then I am honored." They sat there in silence, watching the sky. Somewhere out there, a ship was coming. A judge was coming. Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out the crystal necklace. He unclasped it and placed it around his neck. It settled against his skin, warm and heavy. "What are you doing?" Saris asked. "If they want to take the Keth heritage," Noah said, looking at her, "they have to take me too. I am part of the line now." Saris let out a shaky breath. She reached up and touched the crystal, her fingers brushing his chest. "You are," she whispered. "You are the Veil Guide." Below them in the garage, the clock on the wall ticked past midnight. The last peaceful night was over. Dawn was coming, and with it the truth. The silence in the garage was absolute, a heavy blanket that smothered the usual hum of the atmospheric scrubbers. It was the kind of silence that usually preceded a catastrophic engine failure, or, in Noah Hale's experience, a life-altering disaster. Noah stood by the workbench, wiping his hands on a rag that had long since given up on being clean. Beside him, Saris Keth stood straight, her back rigid, wearing a fresh tunic she had sewn herself from spare flight suit material. She looked regal, despite the oil stain on her left cuff. Carrick Thalen was pacing. For a 7-foot-tall feline warrior clad in bio-armor, he was doing a remarkable impression of a nervous teenager waiting for exam results. "Stop pacing, Carrick," Noah said, his voice low. "You are vibrating the floor plates." "She is early," Carrick muttered, checking the chrono display on his gauntlet. "Elder Saren does not arrive early. She arrives exactly when fate dictates. This means fate is rushing us." "Or she caught a tailwind," Noah suggested, though his own stomach was doing acrobatic maneuvers. "Dad," Mara whispered from the loft railing above. "Is the space grandma here yet?" "Get back in bed, Mara," Noah called up softly. "And keep the kittens quiet. If I hear one hiss, no dessert for a month." A soft, defiant mew drifted down from the shadows, followed by the sound of Mara frantically shushing. Then, the sensors tripped. It was not the blaring alarm of an invasion. It was a single, resonant chime that echoed through the garage's comm system. It was a polite request for docking, encoded in a frequency so old that Noah's console initially identified it as background radiation. "It is the silent vigil," Carrick said, stopping his pacing instantly. He dropped to one knee, bowing his head. Noah walked to the viewport. Descending through the thin atmosphere of Illyris was a ship. It did not look like the predatory warship Carrick had arrived in. It looked like a piece of art carved from obsidian and white gold. It was crescent-shaped, elegant, and moved with a silence that defied aerodynamics. It didn't burn thrusters. It seemed to displace gravity itself, settling onto the landing pad with the grace of a falling leaf. "Showtime," Noah whispered. He hit the door release. The heavy steel shutter rolled up, revealing the cool, starlit night of the moon. The ramp of the silent vigil lowered. There was no steam, no dramatic hydraulic hiss. Just a smooth descent. 3 figures emerged. 2 were guards, elderly Phelan, with graying fur and armor that looked ceremonial, but was undoubtedly functional. Between them walked a figure that made the air around her seem to stand still. Elder Saren was small. She was shorter than Saris, her frame hunched under the weight of a heavy shimmering robe, woven from optic fibers. Her fur was entirely white, thinning at the ears, and she leaned on a staff made of twisted crystal. But her eyes, gold-bright and terrifyingly sharp, held the energy of a collapsing star. She walked into the garage. She did not look at the machinery. She did not look at the messy workbench. She looked straight at Noah. Carrick remained kneeling. Saris bowed deeply, her tail tucked in submission. Noah just stood there. He was a human mechanic in a greasy flight suit, and he decided he would meet the matriarch of an alien species on his own terms. He nodded respectfully. "Welcome to Hale's garage," Noah said. "Sorry about the mess. We were not expecting company." Elder Saren stopped 3 feet from him. She tilted her head, sniffing the air. "Oil," she said. Her voice was like dry leaves scraping over stone. "Ozone, synthetic milk, and—" She paused, looking toward the loft. "Fear." "Caution," Noah corrected her. "We are cautious around people who can incinerate our home from orbit." Saren let out a sound that might have been a chuckle or a cough. "If I wanted to incinerate you, Noah Hale, I would not have bothered to land. I am too old for theatrics." She turned her gaze to Saris. Rise, Saris, Saren commanded. And you, Carrick. You look ridiculous kneeling in a puddle of coolant. Carrick scrambled up, looking mortified as he realized his knee was indeed wet. Elder, Saris, said her voice trembling slightly. You crashed a ship, Saren interrupted. You kidnapped 3 children of the blood. You engaged in unauthorized combat with a gravity storm. And you are cohabitating with a human male. Saren poked a piece of scrap metal with her staff. Your report to the council will be lengthy. I did what was necessary, Saris said, lifting her chin. To save the line. We shall see, Saren said. She looked around. Where are they? The children are asleep, Noah lied. The children are peeking through the floor grate, Saren said, pointing her staff upward without looking. Noah sighed. Mara, bring them down. There was a scuffle upstairs, and then the slow, reluctant sound of feet on metal stairs. Mara descended first, holding Lumi. Jax followed, looking ready to fight, and Ash brought up the rear, yawning. They lined up behind Noah, peeking out from behind his legs. Saren watched them. Her expression did not change, but her ears swiveled forward. She slowly lowered herself onto a crate. Carrick hastily wiped clean for her. Come here, Saren said to the kittens. Jax hissed. Jax, Noah warned. It is all right, Saren said. She reached into her robe and pulled out a small metallic sphere. She rolled it across the floor. It hummed, emitting a soft blue light that danced in patterns. Jax's pupils dilated. The warrior instinct vanished, replaced by the universal imperative of cat. He pounced. Saren smiled. It transformed her face from a mask of judgment into something softer, ancient, and knowing. They are healthy, Saren observed. And they are not afraid of me. That is unusual. Most initiates tremble in my presence. They do not know who you are, Noah said. To them, you are just another guest. And that, Saren said, turning her golden eyes back to Noah, is the heart of the problem, or the solution. She tapped her staff on the floor. It is time for the truth, Noah Hale, Saren said. Carrick told you that Saris and her sister Kayla were exiles, rebels. That is the general idea, Noah said. It is a half-truth, Saren said. She looked at Saris. Tell him who you are, child. Saris took a breath. She looked at Noah, apologetic. I am not just a pilot, Saris said softly. Kayla and I are the daughters of the High Singer. In your terms, we are princesses of the Keth lineage, the sole heirs to the leadership of the Star Singers. Noah blinked. He looked at Saris, at her worn tunic, her grease-stained hands, the way she devoured instant noodles. You are a princess, Noah repeated. And you spent the last month helping me recalibrate fuel injectors. Leadership is service, Saris said simply. They were not exiled for rebellion, Saren continued. They were exiled because they proposed a heresy. They claimed that the Phelan were dying, that our isolation was making our song weak. They proposed that the only way to save our people was to bridge the gap we created centuries ago, to mix our song with the song of humanity. Teach them to love humans, Noah quoted. Precisely, Saren nodded. The council was horrified. They wanted to execute Kayla and Saris for treason. I intervened. I suggested a test. A cruel test, perhaps. I stripped them of their rank. I gave them the children, the next generation of the blood, and I told them, if you believe this so strongly, go. Find a human. Prove that our souls can touch without burning. Noah felt a cold anger rising in his chest. So we are a lab experiment. My home is a petri dish for your politics. It was a desperate gamble, Saren said. We did not expect them to survive. We certainly did not expect them to find you. Why me? Noah demanded. Saris said she heard my song, but space is big. Why did she crash in my backyard? Saren looked at him for a long time. The silence stretched heavy and suffocating. Because you were calling out to us, Noah, Saren said softly. Or rather, Someone was calling out to you. She waved her hand over the crystal staff. A holographic projection sprang to life in the air between them. It was a grainy, low-resolution image clearly taken from a security feed years ago. It showed a woman. She was human with dark curls and a laugh that Noah could hear even without audio. She was standing on a flight deck, talking to a Phelan in a masked encounter suit. Noah's breath hitched. Amaya. Your wife, Saren said. She was not just a cargo pilot, Noah. 10 years ago, before she met you, Amaya was part of a covert exchange program, a secret initiative between a faction of the Phelan and the Terran Science Directorate. She lived on our homeworld for 6 months. She was the first human to learn the rudiments of the song. Noah stared at the image. His world tilted on its axis. Amaya had never told him. She had never said a word about aliens, about Phelan, about songs. She had to keep it secret. Saris stepped in gently. To protect you. The program was shut down. The xenophobes on both sides killed it. Amaya was sent back to Illyris. But she never forgot. She kept a channel open. She sent messages to Kayla and me. She told us about a man she met. A man who could hear the engines talk. A man who listened to the universe. She told us about you, Saren said. She believed you were a natural star singer, born in a species that is supposed to be deaf. The accident, Noah whispered. The memory that haunted his nightmares surged forward. The gravity wave. The ship tearing apart. She died in a spatial distortion. It was not an accident, Saren said, her voice full of old sorrow. Amaya was trying to prove that a human could navigate the veil using Phelan techniques. She was trying to cross an unstable wormhole to reach us to bring data that could reopen the exchange program. But she did not have a guide. She did not have a partner to anchor the resonance. Noah felt like he had been punched. He grabbed the edge of the workbench to steady himself. She died trying to reach you, Noah asked, his voice cracking. And I was right there. I heard the distortion. I heard it, and I did nothing because I was afraid of the noise. You did not know, Sarah said, rushing to his side, grabbing his arm. Noah, you cannot blame yourself. She made a choice. A brave, reckless choice. She left me, Noah said, tears stinging his eyes. She left Mara. She left you a map, Saren corrected him. She planted the seed. Why do you think Kayla and Saris came here? Why do you think they risked everything to find this specific garage on this specific moon? They were following Amaya's beacon. They brought the children to you because Amaya trusted you. She bet her life, and the life of your daughter, on the belief that you were strong enough to bridge the worlds. Noah looked down at Mara. She was standing, very still, listening. She didn't look shocked. She looked validated. Mom was a hero, Mara asked. Yes, child, Saren said. She was a pioneer. Noah looked at the kittens. Jax had caught the light ball and was gnawing on it. Lumi was watching Saren with wide eyes. Ash was asleep on Carrick's foot. So what now? Noah asked, wiping his face. You told us the story. Now comes the verdict. Are you taking them back? Saren stood up. She was small, but in that moment she seemed taller than the mountains of Illyris. The veil surge, Saren said. Carrick sent me the data. You flew a human tugboat through a Category 4 gravity shear. You used a Phelan harmony to stabilize a human hull. You saved a settlement of 2,000 souls. She walked over to Noah and tapped him on the chest with her staff, right over the crystal necklace he wore. You proved the theory, Saren said. Integration is not weakness. It is strength. If I take these children back to the homeworld, they will be raised in the old ways. They will be safe, yes, but they will be stagnant. They will be the last of a dying echo. She looked at the kittens. Or, Saren said, they stay here, with the princess who fixes engines, with the human who sings to storms, with the girl who calls them brothers. They grow up between the worlds. They become the first of a new lineage, the bridge builders. It is dangerous, Carrick spoke up. His voice was rough. The other factions will not accept this easily. Then let them come, Saren said, her eyes flashing. I am the matriarch of the Keth. I declare this garage a sanctuary of the blood. Anyone who attacks it answers to me. She turned back to Noah. The choice is yours, Noah Hale. They are your wife's legacy. They are Saris's burden. But you are the anchor. Do you accept them, not as guests, not as refugees, as family? Noah looked at Saris. She was holding her breath, her hands clasped tight. He looked at Mara. She was nodding furiously. He looked at the garage. It was his life. It was greasy, noisy, and dangerous. But for the first time in 5 years, it wasn't lonely. They break things, Noah said gruffly. Jax eats cables. Ash sleeps in the engine intakes. Lumi hums at 3 in the morning. They are children, Saren said dryly. They are expensive, Noah added. I am going to need a bigger food synthesizer, and better shields for the roof. The Keth will provide resources, Carrick said quickly. Noah smiled. It was a tired, crooked smile, but it was real. Then I guess they stay, Noah said. But I have conditions. No more hiding. If they stay, they live as citizens of Illyris. They go to school. They learn to fix ships. And Phelan is welcome here. I want them to know their own people. I am not raising them to be humans with tails. I am raising them to be both. Saren bowed her head. It was a gesture of profound respect. Agreed, she said. The blockade is lifted. The silent vigil will leave a communications buoy in orbit. You will not be alone. She turned to leave, but stopped in front of the kittens. She reached down and touched Jax on the head. He purred a rough engine-like sound. Grow strong, little warrior, she whispered. The universe is waiting for your song. She walked back toward the ship, her guards flanking her. At the bottom of the ramp, she paused and looked back at Saris and Noah. One last piece of advice, Saren called out, from a grandmother who has seen civilizations rise and fall. Yes, Elder, Saris asked. If you intend to unite our species, Saren said, a distinct twinkle in her eye. Do not just live together. Make it official. Children need rituals. And frankly, Noah, your housekeeping needs a woman's touch, even if she is a princess. Noah turned bright red. Saris coughed, her tail puffing up to twice its normal size. Go, Saris waved her hands. Go back to space, grandmother. Saren cackled a dry rasping sound and boarded her ship. The ramp closed. The silent vigil lifted off, glowing like a second moon, and shot upward into the stars, leaving a trail of shimmering ions in its wake. The silence returned to the garage, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was light. It was relief. Well, Carrick said, breaking the tension. That went better than expected. I expected at least one plasma discharge. He walked over to the corner where he had stashed his gear. I will remain for a few months, Carrick announced. Someone has to teach them the high tongue. Noah's accent is atrocious. My accent is charming, Noah argued. Your accent sounds like a drowning duck, Carrick said. I will take the guest quarters in the back. Good night. He marched off, leaving Noah, Saris, Mara, and the kittens alone in the main bay. Mara yawned a jaw-cracking sound. Can we go to bed now? She asked. I have school tomorrow, and I have to tell Sasha that my cats are actually alien princes. She is going to freak out. Go to bed, monster, Noah said. Take the troop with you. Mara scooped up Lumi. Jax and Ash followed her, stumbling up the stairs, their tails waving flags of victory. Night, Dad. Night, Saris. Good night, Saris called out. When the loft door clicked shut, the garage felt very large. Noah walked over to the side door and opened it. The cool night air flowed in. He picked up the ceramic bowl, the famous bowl, and walked to the kitchenette. He poured a fresh carton of milk into it, warming it slightly on the induction plate. He walked back and placed it by the door. You are still doing it, Saris asked, walking up behind him. She moved silently, her limp almost gone now. Habit, Noah said. But tonight it is not for a ghost. It is for anyone who needs it. Any traveler. Any stray. He stood up and looked at her. In the moonlight, her violet skin looked like porcelain. Her eyes were pools of liquid gold. She knew, Noah whispered. Amaya knew. She set us up. She had faith, Sarah said. She reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, her claws retracted. She knew you had too much love to keep it locked in a box forever. I am just a mechanic, Saris, Noah said, his voice rough. I am not a prince. I am not a diplomat. I am just a guy who fixes things. You fixed us, Sarah said. She stepped closer. The space between them vanished. Noah could smell the scent of the stars on her, that ozone and ozone smell that he had come to associate with home. Saren was right, you know, Saris murmured, looking up at him through her lashes. About the housekeeping. Noah tried to joke, though his heart was hammering against his ribs. About the rituals, Sarah said. She leaned in. Noah stopped thinking. He stopped listening to the engine of the universe. He just felt. He leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was awkward. Their noses bumped. Her whiskers tickled his cheek. He wasn't sure where to put his hands. But it was warm. It was real. It tasted like hope and synthetic milk. Saris made a soft sound in her throat, a purr that vibrated against his lips. Noah pulled her closer, his hand tangling in the soft fur at the nape of her neck. From the top of the stairs, a collective giggle erupted. Noah and Saris broke apart, breathing hard. I saw it, Jax's voice whispered loudly. You, Mara said, though she sounded delighted. Do they do that often? Ash asked. Go to sleep, Noah roared, though he was grinning so hard his face hurt. The sound of scrambling feet echoed as the children retreated. Noah looked at Saris. She was blushing, a darkening of her violet skin. Her tail was swishing back and forth in a happy rhythm. So, Noah said, clearing his throat, alien kindergarten starts tomorrow. We will need a schedule, Saris said, straightening her tunic. And more coffee. Lots of coffee, Noah agreed. He put his arm around her, and together they stood in the doorway of the garage, looking out at the stars. The gas giant hung above them, beautiful and vast. Epilogue, 6 months later. The Illyri star drift was back. The settlement was buzzing with activity. Tourists had flooded the port, eager to see the meteor shower. The hotels were full. The bars were loud. But the best view wasn't from the hotels. It was from the roof of Hale's garage. Noah sat on a lawn chair, a mug of hot cocoa in his hand. Next to him sat Saris, wearing a heavy pilot's jacket over her tunic. Scattered around them was a chaotic jumble of biology. Mara was pointing at the sky, explaining constellations to Ash. Ash, who had grown 6 inches and gained 10 pounds of muscle, was listening intently while chewing on a synthetic jerky stick. Lumi was sitting on the edge of the roof, her eyes glowing, humming a counter-melody to the wind. She was harmonizing with the atmospheric shield, keeping the interference low, so the view was clear. And Jax was hanging upside down from the sensor array, trying to catch a falling star. Get down from there, you menace, Carrick shouted from the ground. The warrior was wearing an apron that said, Kiss the cook. He was manning a barbecue grill, flipping synthetic steaks for a group of neighbors who had gathered in the yard. Let him fall, Noah called down. He lands on his feet, usually. He will dent the radar dish, Carrick grumbled, but he flipped a steak onto a plate and tossed it up. Jax caught it midair with impossible reflexes and scrambled back onto the roof to eat it. Noah leaned back, feeling the vibration of the roof under him. He closed his eyes and listened. The universe was loud. It was a cacophony of engines, wind, laughter, radiation, and gravity. He could hear the green bounty docking in the distance. He could hear the heartbeat of the moon. But it didn't hurt anymore. He felt a hand on his arm. He opened his eyes. Saris was watching him. What do you hear, Veil Guide? She asked. Noah looked at his family. The found family. The broken, messy, impossible family that had crashed into his life and fixed him. He touched the crystal around his neck. It hummed a steady, comforting rhythm that synchronized with Saris with the kittens, even with Carrick down below. "I hear music," Noah said softly. He looked at the bowl of milk by the garage door. A small, desert fox, a native creature no one thought lived this close to the settlement, crept out of the shadows. It sniffed the bowl, lapped up the milk, and looked up at Noah with grateful eyes, before vanishing back into the night. Noah smiled. "They are learning," Noah whispered to Saris, pulling her close as a streak of blue fire tore across the sky. "If they learn to love humans, maybe humans learn to love them too." "We are getting there," Saris said, resting her head on his shoulder. "One bowl of milk at a time." Above them, the sky sang its song of fire and dust, and for the first time in 100 years the song of Illyris was not lonely. It was a chorus.